NFL Week 12, getting into our game previews. This one's a fun week because it's Thanksgiving and we have the 3 Thanksgiving games to discuss. If you ever want to look and follow along with us, we have been recording these and posting them on social media to Twitter, to YouTube, and to Facebook. Eric joins me each and every week, and then we can go through the Betfred Sportsbook betting lines and just take a look at each of these matchups. So, Eric, let's start with the 3 Thursday games that we've got going on this week. Is we have the Bills playing your Lions, man. Your Lions quietly playing some pretty good football right now. And what's interesting is most of the year, great offense, terrible defense. Recently, the defense has actually been playing pretty well. They scored touchdowns last week on 3 consecutive possessions to really put the game away. Lions come into this game with a 4-6 record, 6-4 against the spread. The Bills are 7-3, 5-4-1 against the spread. And the number in this game is the Bills as a 9.5-point favorite on the road. Over under is 54.5. Hey, the Bills went up to Detroit last week and they rented the place from you. Did you see the tweet that the Lions sent out to the Bills?
Yeah, it was just have it cleaned when you leave and be
it was pretty funny. It said important numbers are by the phone. Lock up when you leave and please don't break the tables.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It was great. Well done, Lions there.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
To piggyback your point, ever since the bye, what the Lions been doing is they've been moving Hutchinson around. He's actually dropped back in coverage. He had an interception last week. Moving him around, it's allowing him to get to the quarterback a little bit quicker. We've all seen, like, when you're able to get to a quarterback under that 2.8 seconds, it's hard for them to process information. Flip side, I'm going to say it right now. My prediction is Allen is going to have surgery on, these UCL thing in his elbow. He's going to have surgery in the offseason. He needs surgery right now. You can tell right now he's not 100% at all with the injury he has. Because of that, the offense just doesn't look right. My boy James Cook, even though he only played 16 snaps last week on 11 carries, he had over 78 yards rushing. So he did look good. I'd like to see him get a little bit more run.
So while you're talking about Cook, just because you're talking about him, so they hit both Singletary and Cook each ran for 86 yards, but Cook, he finished with 32 rushing yards over expected on Sunday. That was the highest total for a Bills player this year that wasn't a quarterback. Yep. So that was the best running game that they've had from a back this year.
Yeah, I was high on this kid. I thought he was going to be the starter. Obviously he didn't pick up the pass blocking, so that kind of hurt him a little bit. In terms of this game, I look at it like this. At home, Josh Allen is an absolute stud covering these big numbers. On the road, however, laying 9.5 or more, he's only 25% ATS.
And the Bills went back and forth, right? They went to Detroit, went home so they could be with their family for a couple days, and then are going back to Detroit again.
Yep, that's a lot of little zigzagging travel. Goff is perfect ATS. And Bill's offense just doesn't look right. I think
they didn't get off to a great start again last week, Eric. They had 3 points and 15 total yards in the first quarter. Then they were much better. 342 yards, 28 points in the final 3 quarters. In the second half, they had 223 total yards, and they scored on all their second half possessions except for the last one. They took a little while to get going, though. They was kind of weird. They did hold Chubb last week to 19 yards on 14 carries, and they really held the ball well in the fourth quarter for 9 minutes and 22 seconds, 3 field goals, no turnovers.
But I think that was more of the fact that the Browns.
The
Bills shut down the Browns in the second half.
Exactly.
No offense.
They couldn't do anything and just kept spinning it right back to them.
Yeah, really struggled to get anything going. I locked in as soon as this got up to 9.5. I locked it in because I didn't see it going to 10. So I'm invested here on the.
Totally agree. Have to be on the Bills. I mean, have to be on the Lions here. On the Lions here at home. Plus, I mean, anything like 7.5 and over, I would have been fine with here. And this is just too much of a number for a Lions team that has some ability. I mean, like you mentioned, Hutchinson, 2nd interception in the last 3 games. He's been good in coverage. He also picked up a fumble recovery. We had Now, the second time this year where they faced a team that blitzed on more than 50% of their dropbacks and they had 0 sacks. That's hard to do. That's really impressive from the offensive line. So that offensive line last week held the Giants without a sack, and they rushed for 160 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Now, in the last 5 straight Thanksgiving games, they're 0-5, but they're 2-3 against the spread. This is the first 3-game winning streak since 2017. The Lions are top 10 in EPA per play. They had 31 points against the Giants on Sunday. All 4 touchdowns came on the ground, 3 of them from Williams. He's leading the league with 12. A major component.
He leads the league in red zone carries too.
And this is just straight from Football Outsiders. A major component of their offensive success has been their offensive line, which is tied for 5th in total points per play. Additionally, Goff has been more than serviceable. He's 9th in adjusted net yards per attempt. The last 2 weeks, we've seen a little more Justin Jackson. More snaps, more routes, more touches than Swift. And, the defense still isn't great, right? They've allowed the most yards per game and the most points per game. But 3 weeks ago, if I would have told you were going to win a couple games like that, especially the first 2, you would have said there's no way. The only way this Lions team is going to win is if they outscore someone. So it's kind of like you lose some of those games early in the year that you maybe should have won. And then a couple of these games, it sort of feels like for the first time in a while, the Lions had things even out a little for them.
Yeah. Stuff is finally going their way, which is great to see. Goff is serviceable. Defense, you can finally see Joseph, the safety, starting to make plays. Hutchinson starting to make plays. The young guys in the defense are finally starting to come together. Swift, I'll say it, biggest disappointment in fantasy football. There are some people touting him as a, potential first-round pick, top 3 running back. He just can't stay healthy. I like the Lions here. Bills are struggling. Dare I say, I think the Lions could potentially win the game too.
I do too.
I probably put a little sprinkle on the money line, but I definitely locked in the 9.5. But that's one bet I've locked in for the week.
Come on, Danny Campbell and those Lions. We've got the Lions plus the 9.5 here. Looking at the lines over at Betfred Sportsbook. Let's move to the Giants and the Cowboys. So I got to say, Eric, win or lose in this game. And what's tough now is that the Giants are really dealing with some injuries right now. So that is what is my major concern about this game. But every ounce of my fiber and my being loves the next 2 games on Thanksgiving, because to me, this is everything I look for in gambling. We have a Cowboys team that beat the absolute crap out of the Vikings. And man, I don't like doing the old pat myself on the back thing. I said it on Sunday morning that they were going to get beat by 30. I said they're going to get beat by 30, and they lost by 37. You just knew that everything was coming together for the Vikings. I think Dallas is a very good football team, but I took less out of that Cowboys-Vikings game about the Cowboys than I did about the Vikings. I just thought that was more of the Vikings kind of regressing and all those little bounces kind of coming to get them in the same game. Now you've got the Cowboys who come off of their incredible game. Pollard was awesome. They scored on their first 7 possessions. They were 11 of 15 on third down with Dak. The defense was unstoppable. Parsons had 4 tackles, 2 sacks, a forced fumble, 5 quarterback hits. They jumped all the way up to number 2 in DVOA. Their defense is awesome. They lead the NFL with 42 sacks, tied with the Patriots and Titans with 106 pressures. Special teams has been good. But everybody saw that, and now they're a little overvalued right now. And you know what? Dallas is 0-3 straight up against the spread in the last 3 Thanksgivings. They are 1-10 ATS on Thanksgiving in the last 11 years. And I just feel like this is the most perfect spot in the world to play the Giants, because nobody wants to play the Giants. Everybody's kind of assuming that the Giants got off to kind of a fluky start this year and they were going to come back to life. Last week, Daniel Jones had some turnovers after he wasn't turning the ball over at all this year. They only scored 1 point, or they only scored points on 1 of their first 7 drives. And at that point, the Lions were already up 24-6. I mean, it was over. And the run defense struggled. Jones struggled. They had 5 players rule out during the game last week that they lost because of injury. I mean, just one of those games where every single thing went wrong. And I think that's why you got to play them this week. I think there's value on the Giants. So I like the Giants in here, plus the 9.5. Talk to us about Giants Cowboys.
Well, first of all, what was the future I gave out last week on your show, bud?
Dallas, well,
Giants
Yo,
not to make the playoffs.
To miss.
At plus 300. Yeah, I gave this one out on my show on Tuesday night. Gambling is all about buying low, selling high. The Cowboys just went to Minnesota, defeated the Vikings 40-3. So they're being overvalued right now in the market. Teams that won the week before by 35 points or more are 43% ATS when they are home favorites. Teams that won by 35 points or more and are a touchdown or more favorites, 46% ATS. Teams in general, after winning by 35 points or more, are 42% ATS. Kind of just piggybacks exactly what you just said about a team just being overvalued in that situation. Daniel Jones, absolutely insane, 22 and 14 ATS as a dog. That's 61%. As a road dog, he is an absurd 13 and 5, 72% ATS. I also like the situation where you get a divisional dog who's playing a team for the second time that lost that's getting over a touchdown, because you can have those adjustments. The first team really doesn't have to make that many adjustments. The second team is going to make some more adjustments going into this matchup. And also, it's always important to watch the games, because I'm not hearing anybody. Now, granted, I really don't watch that much sports TV or listen to that many. I don't listen to any podcast really. I just kind of look at Twitter, but no one's really talking about how Micah Parsons got banged up at the end of the game.
Yeah, he did.
And I really think if Parsons isn't there, that's going to hurt the pass rush of the Cowboys. This Cowboys team can be run on. I think that it lines up for a big game for Saquon Barkley.
We saw the Packers do it a few weeks ago, right? That's the template for them.
Yeah,
because the Cowboys are you can run against them. The Cowboys actually give up 4.7 yards per rush, which is 27th in the league. So they're right down there with the Lions, bottom 5 against the run.
Yep. And divisional dogs this year that are giving a touchdown or more are 5-2 ATS. So we are seeing the trend this year that teams that are over a tutty favorite are covering. I absolutely love the Giants here. I locked them in at 9.5.
Both of these teams are 7-3. It's a huge game in the NFC East and for playoff positioning. As we move along to the final of the 3 games on the Thanksgiving Thursday, Patriots, Vikings. We have the Vikings as a 2.5-point favorite here at home, playing the Patriots. Over under in this game is 42.5. New England is 6-4, 6-3-1 against the spread. The Vikings are 8-2 straight up, 4-5-1 against the spread. Eric, it was one game. What's nice, though, is when you bet a game, you can bet it bigger, right? It's not just necessarily one win. You can play a game bigger if you like it that way. But that would be the resume game I would put on my resume to tell people about how you should bet, is watching the Vikings throughout the season. We've been pointing out every week how they were not nearly as good as their record. They are all the way down to 24th in DVOA. It was the first time they lost in 63 days, but it was a microcosm of every game they were in. All of the balls were bouncing their way. It all just came together against them in this one game. It was the first time this year they didn't get a turnover. They fumbled on their first drive. Then on the second drive, Hawkinson dropped back-to-back passes in the end zone. On his first 23 dropbacks, Cousins was sacked 6 times and knocked down 9. He finished overall sacked 7 times. That was the most in his career. Do you know the Vikings have a negative point differential this year? They are 8-2, and they have a negative overall point differential. That is the lowest in NFL history by any team to start 8-2 or better through 10 games. The lowest was the Chargers in 1987. They had a +6 point differential through 10 games. They ended up missing the playoffs that year. They went 1 of 11 on third down, did the Vikings. 183 total yards on 10 drives. But you know what? I love him in this spot. I absolutely love him in this spot. Just like we said, this is a fantastic spot for them to bounce back. Now, my major concern for them is the offensive line issue for Darisaw. That's going to be a big issue. I think that will really hurt them without their starting left tackle. And one more thing, this is a primetime game. Cousins is 3-5 in his last 8 primetime games, and the 2 wins came against the Bears. He's thrown 10 interceptions in those 8 primetime games. And the only time this year he had a primetime game was against the Eagles back in week 2 when they got destroyed. But you know what, Eric? The Patriots are not very good. The Patriots and Mac Jones is the 34th of 36 graded quarterbacks by Pro Football Focus. He has 7 big-time throws this year, 10 turnover-worthy plays. They averaged 4.2 yards per offensive play over their last 3 games. Their opponents have averaged 3.7 yards per offensive play. 2.1 yards per play the last 2 weeks for the Patriots opponents. Here is a quote per Football Outsiders. Yes, the defense remains capable of confounding terrible quarterbacks, but with 8 penalties, missed field goals, and practically no offense, it's hard to argue that they're really winning with coaching and with discipline. They're just turtling until opponents outdumb them. Turtling until opponents outdumb them. I freaking love that quote.
Hey, you can't make that quote up.
From Football Outsiders. That was fantastic stuff. I mean, they crossed the 50-yard line twice in the second half, and they needed a go-ahead punt return touchdown to win the game. It's a Jets thing. I mean, I just think it's a fantastic spot to bounce back right away on the Vikings, and I've been waiting to play against the Patriots, so this is like the most perfect spot, win or lose, for what I want to bet on this week. Like, I absolutely love the Vikings back in this spot here. I think they'll be able to score on the Patriots. I think they'll be able to run the ball. We've seen the Patriots are not fantastic against the run, and I don't think the Patriots will be able to score with them. Talk to us about Vikings Pats.
I gave this one out on my show too. Vikings -2.5. I've been fading this team a lot this season, but this week I'm actually betting them. Teams that have lost by 35 points or more the week before are 64% ATS. Teams that have lost by 35 points or more that are home favorites with a spread of 3 or less, 70%. This Patriots team is struggling offensively. Like you said, I don't think they're going to be able to score enough points to keep up with them. Mac Jones, the Patriots messed up by having Joe Judge and Patricia be there and be his developmental coach for the gap between his first and second year. He's not taking the steps forward that a second-year quarterback should be taking, and it's really showing on the field. He's not making the reads he should. He's not having confidence. So I don't trust Mac Jones at all. And you hit the nail on the head. They can't stop the run. I think it's a huge Dalvin Cook game.
This is just all what gambling is. Like, Patriots got to win. That people think they're better than they are. I mean, you start diving into this team, they are not that good. They have a couple wins against the Jets so far this year. Here's a look at who the Patriots have beat. Here's their schedule. They lost to Miami in week 1. They beat Pittsburgh by 3 in week 2. They lost to Baltimore. They lost in overtime to Green Bay. And then we sort of thought, like, oh yeah, Green Bay is okay. Maybe that's not a bad win, or maybe that's not a bad loss. Well, Green Bay is not good. They beat up Detroit, and in that game, Detroit lost like 5 or 6 players during the game. They were so banged up. They beat the Browns, who are terrible. Then the Bears kicked the crap out of them on Monday Night Football. Since then, since they got their doors blown off by the Bears, they beat the Jets twice by 1 possession, and they got to play Sam Erlinger and the Colts in the game right before they fired Frank Reich.
Yeah, that's anything but impressive.
That's, they're the team now that I'm going to try to pick on for a little while if they look a little overvalued in betting lines. Let's continue along.
And plus, like, to kind of piggyback, that AFC West is absolutely a dogfight. There's going to be some situational spots. And I know it's a 10-day rest, but still the Patriots do play the Jets the next week. So, both those teams could easily be kind of looking ahead a little bit to that situation.
Let's get to Falcons and Commanders. We've got Atlanta 5-6 straight up. They're still in the playoff hunt, 7-4 against the spread. Washington 6-5, 6-4-1 against the spread. The Falcons, man, Patterson, the 9th career kickoff return for a touchdown. That's the most all time. It was his 7th career touchdown of 100 plus yards. No other NFL player has more than 3. He has 7. For Atlanta, that Pitts injury probably going to hurt them quite a bit because, yeah, Pitts wasn't lighting it up in fantasy, but he's a very good blocker, and he's on the field quite a bit too. The defense for Atlanta was able to put a lot more pressure on the quarterback last week. They pressured Fields on 40% of dropbacks. Weeks 1 through 10, they'd only put pressure on quarterbacks 22% of the time, which was the 4th lowest rate in the NFL. I got to say, I don't know if I'm going to particularly play them in this spot, but I just want to give a lot of credit to Ron Rivera and what he's done this year with the Commanders. I mean, they have all that crap, Eric, going on with their owner, who just seems like he's a miserable guy, and they have to keep hearing about this all the time. They go make a trade for a quarterback that they bring in, and the quarterback that they bring in can't do anything. He can't produce. The quarterback that they bring in is just not capable. They have one of the rookies that they draft. He gets shot before the season starts. I mean, they had to deal with so much. And somehow this Commanders team is a team with a winning record, and they have a huge chance of getting a playoff spot after, 11 weeks of the NFL season. So last week, they beat up on an inferior opponent. I saw you kind of pop out for a second, Eric, and pop back in. Was just talking about all the stuff that the Commanders had dealt with so far this year with, rookie getting shot before the season. You have an owner who you have to get asked about all the time because he's said and been involved with bad stuff. You have a quarterback that you bring in that gives you nothing. And all of a sudden, they have won 5 of their last 6 games. And the only game in that stretch they lost, they shouldn't have lost. It was the game against the Vikings where they had a big lead late and they blew that game. Their defense is playing well. They came up with 2 turnovers. They allowed just 21 yards rushing against the Texans last week. Over the first 5 weeks of the year, the defense was allowing 25.6 points. Since week 6, they're allowing 15.8 points and 276 total yards per game. They have 12 takeaways. And man, Chase Young out, Robinson shot, wrong quarterback in Wentz, bad owner. This is the only team to beat the Eagles so far this year. And they lead the league, Eric, in time of possession. That's why they've been good recently. They averaged 32 minutes and 44 seconds per game. Monday Night Football against the Eagles, they held the ball for over 40 minutes. And then against the Texans, they held the ball for over 35 minutes. And during the last 2 weeks, they rank tied for 8th in EPA per attempt. Both Gibson and Robinson Jr. rank in the top 20 in EPA per attempt over the last 2 weeks, have a combined 259 rushing yards. Honestly, it's been Gibson who's been better. Robinson's just, you wonder if he's healthy because he's ranks 49th out of 50 running backs with 50 or more carries at 3.4 yards per carry. But they just do a lot of little things better. It's not like they have some magic formula, Eric. It's defense is playing better. They're not turning the ball over as much. They are running the ball. They're holding the ball more. And, let's get the ball to Terry McLaurin more. With Carson as the quarterback, he finished weekly finish of 40th of wide receiver 40 in PPR scoring. So far, he's up to 20th per week with Heineke. Much, much better.
As soon as the Texans do that pick 6, I knew our Texans bet was just dead.
Yeah. Yeah, we were in trouble on that one.
You kind of hit the nail on the head. Gibson's looking a lot better. Robinson's just running straight ahead. He's really not finding the hole. He's just running in the back of the offensive lineman, which is really weird to see because they switched to the zone scheme that he was most familiar with coming out of college. So I'm a little surprised with how much that he's struggling. But let's face it, Gibson's not an everyday down back. He's like a functional guy, 15 touches, 12 to 15 touches a game, have it be in the receiving game or or with handoffs. he's not a guy that can take the pounding of 20 times. And I think they're finally starting to figure that out. The defense is playing good, but I kind of feel the Commanders are a little bit overvalued.
Yeah.
I believe they've covered like what is this, like 4 or 5 straight games in a row. Really expect more money to be coming in. I'm going to be looking to take the Falcons if this gets anything 5 or over. Right now, that this dead number, it's really not a no buy for me. I'm kind of sitting this out because at the end of the day, you really need to look yourself in the mirror and say, can you trust Tyler Heineke laying over a field goal? I can't. And I'm going to look to fade him. And, I'll just kind of wait to see. It's always good to kind of have a number in your head. I had that with the Falcons last week. I said, if the Falcons get below 3, that's my buying point. And once they got below 3, it happened live on the show that we do for BTB. That's when I hopped in. If this gets up to 5 or higher, I'm in the Falcons. But right now, this is a no-go for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'll trust Heineke at around a field goal ish. I wouldn't want to trust him at a touchdown. So I think you're right in that range, right where we're at here. As we go to Ravens and Jags. So Ravens are a 4-point favorite on the road here. Baltimore is 7-3 this year, but they're 4-5-1 against the spread. Jacksonville 3-7 straight up, 3-6-1 against the spread. The Ravens, they really didn't play very well last week. They sleptwalked through a lot of that game and won. They ended up forcing 3 turnovers in the fourth quarter, and they scored 10 points off of that. The offense still just doesn't look very good. They scored a total of 13 points. They only ran for 3.8 yards per carry, and they just don't have receiving options. It was veteran receiver Demarcus Robinson who had 9 catches for 128 yards, and that was the highest receiving yards for a Raven player in a game since Marquise Brown had 147 back in week 1 of 2019. They do have the easiest strength of schedule coming up in the next 4 games. They're all against teams with losing records, and they faced one of the easiest schedules of past defenses moving forward. So keep an eye on Duvernay. On Monday, they mentioned that they need to get him more involved, and they play that easy schedule of past defenses. I wouldn't be shocked to see him get a little more involved. They do have 1 defensive takeaway in 12 straight games. That's the longest active streak in the NFL. But kind of a quiet injury that we didn't hear much about. Stanley, he had been playing at a really, really elite high level, and their offense does not move nearly as well when he's not playing at that level. The Jaguars, they come off their bye. I mean, a couple weeks ago, they played the Chiefs. They did everything they could to try to beat them. They pulled off an onside kick to open the game. They recovered 2 fumbles, and they were still down by 13 points at the end of the first half. Onside kick, 2 fumbles, and you're still down by 2 scores at the end of the half. They missed a field goal. They had to settle for 3 points on the opening drive of the third quarter after driving all the way down to the 4. That's never going to work against KC. They got sacked 5 times, which is the most in Trevor Lawrence's career. But Kirk had a very good game. 105 yards, 9 catches, 2 touchdowns. He ranks 8th in DYAR and 7th in effective yards. And this is probably a pretty good spot for a young team coming off a bye where you had a first-year coach, and now he has a lot of film and a lot of game sample to see what worked and what didn't. I think this team will probably look pretty good, a lot better maybe, and have some new wrinkles coming off their bye here, Eric. So I'm on the Jag side at 3.5 or over. It's at 4 right now. Ravens are a 4-point favorite on the road.
Yeah, Stanley hurt. Which is a big blow to this offense. This defense of the Ravens, I really truly believe, is a championship level defense. Offense just isn't clicking, which is a little bit surprising. I really think this whole contract stuff is really weighing on Lamar with how he's playing on the field. Also, Mark Andrews is banged up. With Andrews banged up, that really does hurt the passing game because he is the true number 1. They really don't have that wide receiver. I really thought they were going to try to make a play for someone to go after somebody, but they clearly didn't. Harbaugh, 4-point favorite or more. He's only 48% ATS. Peterson, 71% ATS is a home favorite. Getting 3 or more, he's 71%, as I said. I would kind of lean the Jags here. But my issue with the Jags is this. I kind of feel they're so young and they're so poorly coached. We got to kind of give Peterson a little bit more time. And next year is the year we're going to see him make this jump. I really thought it was going to be this year. But this team has so many bad habits, and we've seen it. Like the London game, when they're up, they should have beat the Broncos in London. They didn't. There was that bad pick. I think they messed up by having Etienne run the ball so much. I said it on my stream a couple weeks ago. I think he's destined for an injury with how much they're running him. So I think they're a year away. I really feel that they're a year away till they get where they need to be.
Let's go to Bears versus the Jets. We've got the Jets as a 4.5-point favorite in here, over under 39.5. We really don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for either of these two teams right now, right?
Before you go into this, I just want to tell you something that's going to blow your mind. Okay. The last 5 games. No, let me piggyback. We both agree that when you think running mobile quarterbacks in the NFL, 2 of the top 3 names that come to the mind are Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, correct?
Yep.
And the last 5 games, Justin Fields has had 80 carries, the last 5. That's more than Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have this whole season.
That's great.
Just let that set in for a little bit, though.
And what ends up happening is it can't sustain, right? You can't take those kind of hits all the time. You can run in spots and you can carry a team and you can do it in big games. But if you do that week in, week out, you're going to get hurt. And that's the case right now with Fields. He's dealing with multiple injuries.
And the thing is with him is the Bears have yet to have a 100-yard receiver this year. We're entering week 12. They haven't had their bye. And they have yet to have a 100-yard wide receiver. Just let that set in for a little bit. For how good he's been, if they're really going to make this next step, which I think they could make next year, he needs to start throwing the ball.
Yeah, and I will say, and I don't think it's his fault, right? I think I do think they were in a kind of a unique situation where offensively, they've for the most part been making the best out of their situation. Like, they have a bad offensive line. They don't really have playmakers for the wide receivers. So I think they've done a pretty good job. Like, even recently, he's looked a lot more competent throwing the ball. Their problem, I think, in these games, like this stretch of games, they've lost all these games where they've been playing well. They've lost 4 in a row and 7 out of 8. And the problem is the defense, Eric. In those games, the guys they traded away could have made 1 or 2 plays that might have won any of those games for them. Like all of those games that they lost by maybe 1 possession or 2. But I agree with you. They've been leaning on him a little too much, and this is what happened. Now he's banged up, and now Herbert's out. I mean, this has got to be a big Montgomery game. I think, again, Montgomery, he played 52 of 66 snaps. He had 4 targets, 17 carries, but they're going to probably have to lean on him even more in here. I don't really have a play in this game one way or the other. The Jets, man, what's going on with Wilson is kind of crazy. Like, they haven't committed to having him as their starter. After the game, he acted like it wasn't his fault. Did you hear some of his comments? He was just
he's an immature kid, and you can kind of tell. I mean, I was low on this guy coming out, and this just blows your mind if you just kind of think about it. Think if the Jets would have drafted Justin Fields. Most people had him going second. You would have the Jets right now. Their offense would be Tyler Conklin at tight end, Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson as their wide receiver core, plus Denzel Mims, running backs Michael Carter, and Priest Hall if he was still healthy. Think how good and how young that offense would be. It still blows my mind that they went with Zach Wilson instead of Justin Fields, and that's got to be one of the as much as the Bears get stuff for Trubisky, everyone had Justin Fields draft stock pretty high. No one had Mahomes stock this high. Deshaun Watson had that knee injury. And for as bad as Trubisky was, he still led him to 2 playoffs appearance and 1 division title. Wilson's going to be benched his second year. This has to be one of the biggest quarterback draft blunders in recent years. And let me just read this list to you, okay? Because I'm sorry, it seems to be like we're talking about a lot of stuff I talked about.
Absolutely.
On my show. This is a championship level defense. And Wilson's not the guy. And with these young guys playing so well in defense, they're going to be on their second contract in a couple of years. You need to hit the quarterback position. With how good they are, they're not going to get a Young or a Stroud. They're not going to get one of those top draft picks. Here's the list of free agents. Tell me out of this list, who do you think they go for? Tom Brady, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Jimmy Garoppolo, Teddy Bridgewater, Daniel Jones, Jacoby Brissett, Geno Smith, Lamar Jackson, and Taylor Heineke. These are the unrestricted free agents going into next year that play the quarterback.
Yeah, it's not a very good list.
I mean, I think there's no chance Brady goes to the Jets. I don't think they're going to go after Mayfield. There's no way they can make a return with Darnold. Bridgewater's a backup. Yeah, I think Geno stays. Brissett, no way. I think Daniel Jones stays. I think Lamar is going to stay in Baltimore. I think they're either going to overplay for Garoppolo or Heineke.
Last week, the Jets and Wilson, he went 9 of 22 for 77 yards. He got sacked 4 times. There was bad wind, and he was all over the place. There were probably 2 interceptions that the Patriots dropped. This is the 4th time in the last 5 games where he hasn't even hit 155 yards. He's completed less than 56% of his attempts in 4 out of his 7 starts this year. He's thrown for multiple touchdowns only 1 game, and he has 4 games this year without a touchdown pass. Now, Flacco, who started the first 3 games, has 5 touchdown passes, which is more than Wilson has in twice as many starts. But I will say one thing. I am going to have him in a Millie Maker lineup this week.
Zach Wilson?
Absolutely. Now, couple reasons why. Well, nobody's going to have him in one, so I'm going to have him in one. But he has faced the toughest schedule of any quarterback by passing DVOA based on the defenses that he's faced. So he actually has a higher passing DVOA than Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, or Mac Jones, the guy who he played. Better passer this year than all of them. The Jets have faced the hardest schedule of opposing pass defenses so far this year. In their remaining games, they play the 30th schedule of defenses overall. I think he's going to look a little bit better, which actually may not be good for them long term. If he looks like somewhat competent, then they may think like, oh, okay, maybe he's okay. He's not. This can't be your guy. But I actually think he's going to look a little bit better moving forward. Here's another quote for you that I figured you'd enjoy. Per Football Outsiders, quote, Wilson is a blindfolded preschooler throwing lawn darts. The Jets would be better off lining up Michael Carter in the shotgun running the Wildcat every play than keeping him in the huddle.
That's
103 total yards last week, 2.1 yards per play. They were 3 of 14 on third down. But the defense, like you said, they're good. They sacked Mac Jones 6 times, and they only allowed a field goal in 59 minutes. You're supposed to win that game. You hold your opposition to a field goal in 59 minutes of a game. You are supposed to win. They're just dead like towards the bottom in all of the offensive metrics. 30th in the league with passing yards per play. Only the Cardinals and Steelers are worse. They rank 29th in third down conversion rate. There were 17 total punts in the game. The Jets had 10 of those punts. They only had 9 passing completions. They had more punts than they did passing completions in that game. I can't have a play on this one way or the other, because this might be at halftime. This might be Joe Flacco and Trevor Siemian going at it.
Yeah, which would be awesome. Which would be absolutely awesome. We don't know what's going on. We don't know if Fields is going to play. That's the elephant in the room. That's going to affect a lot of stuff, like how you do it. Can you really trust Wilson laying points? I can't. Maybe if it goes to Flacco, or if they go to Mike White, the guy that beat the Bengals last year, maybe it goes down a little bit. Jets defense lights out, and they definitely got to make a change moving forward if they're legitimate, because they're doing way better than I thought they were capable of this year. But
their defense is really good. Like, it's a legitimate defense. Their secondary is excellent. They put pressure on the quarterback. They've been in now 2 or 3 other games that they should have won, and they did not win just because they have zero competency from quarterback. And like we said, it's the attitude. It's not like this guy's coming out after the game like, man, I screwed up. I'm going to get better. We need to work. I'm sorry. We're working on it. He's like, yeah, screw this. I want to throw it more. Like, he doesn't seem like he gets it.
Yeah, doesn't get it at all. And I'm going to say this: I'd be way more high on this team if they had Brees Hall. If this team had Brees Hall back there, I I would be a lot more on this team. But yeah, this is just a total stay away from me. I don't want anything to do with this game.
Let's get to Bengals and Titans. So the Bengals are a short favorite on the road in here against the Titans. Cincinnati 6-4 straight up, 7-3 against the spread. Titans 7-3 straight up, 8-2 against the spread. This was a rematch of the playoffs last year when the Titans were your number one seed and the Bengals went in on the road and defeated them. The Bengals last week were down by 3 at halftime to the Steelers, but they continued to throw the ball. And Burrow ended up with 4 touchdown passes, 3 of them to backup running back Perine, as Mixon had a concussion. Burrow was really good, and he's been very, very good without Chase. In 3 games, he has a 69.6 completion percentage, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and one of them was that incredible play by Watt last week. Higgins had a massive game. At one point, Burrow completed 11 passes in a row, and he now ranks 4th in effective yards. The defense is being helped by Hendrickson. He has 3.5 sacks over his last 4 games, 7 quarterback hits, 2 passes defended, and 14 pressures during that stretch. Now, on the Titans side, gosh, they're such a fun team to just gotta watch and to back and to bet. The Titans, they've only allowed more than 17 points once in their last 7 games. That was to Kansas City in an overtime game. So far this year, they allowed 40 to the Bills, 22 to the Raiders. Every other game has been 20 points allowed or less. And actually are coming off their highest point total that they've scored this year. It was the first time all year that they've scored a second. It's the first time all year they scored a 4th quarter touchdown. It's absurd. Coming into that game, they'd only scored 12 combined points in 9 fourth quarters. And they had won 7 of those last 8 games. The only loss was to Kansas City in overtime. They've been without their pass rusher Landry. They haven't had good production from their receivers. The offensive line hasn't been great. They're not even great against the pass. And they somehow still continue to win and cover because of freaking Vrabel. And they're a home dog here again. And they're going to have to try to throw the ball, I think, in this one. Tannehill, he completed 20% of his passes over expected last week. That was the highest in a game of any quarterback in the last 3 years with a minimum of 25 attempts. He earned a 97 next-gen passing score, which is the highest by any quarterback this year. 2 big-time throws. Burks was the first Titan with 6 or more catches and 100-plus yards since A.J. Brown last year. And Vrabel, I mean, this is your guy, right? 22-12 ATS in his career as an underdog. 20 of those are straight up wins. The defense is 7th in schedule adjusted efficiency, and they're 12th in EPA per play. And, you know, they've had Tannehill issues. These 2 teams are both hot, though. They both were 0-2 to start. Titans have won 7 out of 8. Bengals have won 6 out of 8. Total opposite style teams in here. I feel like you're probably on Vrabel, though. Home dog, revenge spot.
You're starting to know my plays, man. Starting to know me really well. There's just 2 guys, actually 3 guys. Shanahan, actually 4 guys. Sorry. Shanahan, Cliff, Vrabel, and Tomlin. These are the guys you fade as favorites, take as dogs. Vrabel is an insane 69% ATS as a home dog, 65% as a dog in general. But this is a stat that really jumped out to me. Extended rest, 10 games or more, he's 9-0 ATS on extended rest. Tennessee, number 1 DVOA versus the run. For how many weapons that the Bengals have on the outside, Boyd, Higgins, Chase could be coming back 50-50. He's going to play. Recording this on Tuesday, so we really don't know the practice report situation of the players yet. 50-50 he's going to play, and even if he does play, we really don't know what we're going to get from him. Mixon did exit that game early, so the run game is going to be hurt with him not there. Then you factor in how good Tennessee is against the run. That's going to put more pressure on Joe Burrow, and they have Jeffrey Simmons. Jeffrey Simmons is one of the best players in the league that no one talks about. I think he's going to be able to get home, get to the quarterback. This Tennessee defense has steadily been improving every single week. I like the Titans here. Perfect revenge spot. Vrabel is a dog. I locked it in at 1.5. This is one of the bets I've actually locked in for this week.
Let's go Broncos, Panthers. We have the Broncos as a short favorite here on the road, 2.5 point favorite over Carolina. Over under in this game is 36. You have Denver, who is 3-7 straight up and against the spread. Carolina 3-8 straight up, 5-6 against the spread. Man, the Broncos have. So I thought you would like this stat. If the Broncos scored 18 points in every game this year, they would be 9-1. 18. That's it. That's it. We're not asking him to score 30. 18 points. They'd be 9-1. They are dead last in the NFL in red zone trips, touchdowns, and red zone conversion rate. The offensive line is allowed 11 total pressures. They've now lost 6 of their last 7. Russell Wilson has had one game this year where he's been a top 12 fantasy quarterback. 1 week. 1 week where he's finished in the top 12. He's had multiple touchdowns, 1 game. They had 123 yards on their final 7 possessions, 3.3 yards per play. They had a 10-point lead, and they could not do anything to extend it. They had a chance to ice the game in the final series. It was 3rd and 10. So these are the kind of things that bother me and that concern me a little bit, Eric, is that physical stuff that happens, right? I mean, you get older, you get hurt. You can't control if you go to try to reach for it and it's not there. Nothing you can do about it. But mental stuff, that shouldn't go away. It's 3rd and 10. They're coming out of the 2-minute warning. The Broncos are up by 3. So 3rd and 10, just run the ball, run a play, take all the time off the clock. The Raiders had no timeouts. Instead, Russell Wilson throws a pass. What the hell are you doing on 3rd and 10 throwing a pass? Just take a sack. Take a sack, punt the ball, 35 more seconds go. I mean, he gave the Raiders a full extra 35 seconds. So they get the ball back with 1 minute and 45 seconds left, and it made things very easy for them. That's just like mental stuff. That's got nothing to do with physical, who your coach is, what your offensive line is doing, the weapons you have. That's you, Russell Wilson. You've done this. This is like Pop Warner stuff that they teach you. Don't throw the ball away there. Keep the clock running. Just take a sack.
Yeah,
I just can't trust either of these sides. I don't even know who the hell is going to play quarterback for Carolina. Baker has been so miserable this year. PJ will have a game where he looks competent. Like, PJ at least tries to throw the ball down the field, but his floor is even worse than Baker's floor. Like, when PJ looks bad, he looks worse of any of them. Maybe they just go to Sam Darnold. I don't want anything to do with this game.
They're eventually going to have to go to Darnold to see what they got. I don't think it's this game. I think they'll give him a couple weeks. I think they want to put Darnold in a situation where he's not going to be playing against the top tier defense. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say easier matchup because these are pro athletes playing at the highest level, but throwing Darnold to the Wolves first game back isn't the answer. The one thing that PJ brings, in my eyes, PJ brings 2 things that Baker doesn't. His running ability with the ball, and also I do feel he has a connection with Marshall. I really feel Baker really lacks a connection with any single player. Sterling from Silver Star Sports, who was on my show last week, he sent me a text message earlier today when I was driving to back home to Michigan. He wanted, for me and you, he said we were soft for not having the Panthers plus 12 in our plays last week.
I know. We thought about
so
yeah.
He, props to him. He was on my show last week. He gave it out. But he said that you and I were soft for not having it. So, just him kind of razzing a little bit. Wilson, 44% ATS is a road favorite. Field goal favorite or less, 41%. 0-4 is a favorite with the Broncos this year. But we really, like, you hit the nail on the head. We really don't know what's going on with the Packers offense. Are the Packers offense going to be able to move the ball against this Broncos defense? I don't think so. And the Broncos are missing 12 starters. Don't get me wrong, they've been an absolute train wreck, but any team missing that many starters from week 1, it's just kind of tough. Chase Edmonds gets a high ankle sprain, and then you cut Melvin Gordon. So the only back there is Marlon returning the Mac and Latavius Murray. Those are the two backs. Obviously, Mac is a shell of himself because of the injury. I mean, you kind of have to play Latavius Murray in DFS this week just because he's the only option. He's the only ball game in town. So yeah, this is just a poorly ran organization that needs a complete facelift, and I kind of feel they sold their soul when they brought Peyton in to win that championship, and they just haven't. You know what I mean? Yep. I just kind of feel like they're just going downhill. Obviously, trading for Wilson was a mistake. I don't want anything to do with this game.
The next game is a tough one for me too because, man, I've wanted to get excited about the Texans this year. They're 1-8-1, but they're 4-5-1 against the spread. Miami 7-3, 5-5 against the spread. Dolphins are 13-point favorite in this game. The total is 46, and I don't think the Dolphins should be favored by this much. But Eric, there's just nothing about the Texans that poor our guy Davis Mills. I liked him. He's just kind of becoming my Baker. I can't play him. I watch the games. Done. I can't play him. He is so disappointing this year in every single way. In every I think he's seeing ghosts. You know what I mean? He's got the yips, and
I think he's kind of in the same situation that Davis Mills is in. Not Davis Mills, Mac Jones. I mean, bringing in Pep Hamilton, come on. Yeah. But there is no excuse why Pep Hamilton should be calling plays at the NFL level. I think that's kind of hurt his development a little bit.
They in the first half last week, they had 5 drives in the first half that went for negative yards. 5, including an interception return for a touchdown. They had 1 first down in the first half. Pierce couldn't even run the ball at all. By the end of the game, he had 8 yards on 10 carries. At the end of the first half, as a team, they had negative 5 yards. That was the lowest first half yardage of any team all season long. They finished with 148 total yards. And I don't think the Dolphins are quite as good as their record would suggest. They're coming off a bye here. I don't really believe in their defense very much. I don't really want anything to do with this game.
I mean, I am probably going to be on the Texans just regretfully. Just kind of looking at it, 5-game losing streak. That's what they're on. You're a road dog. You're 55% ATS. Teams on a 5-game losing streak getting over 10 points, 73% ATS. I really feel this number is just going to extend, just keep on growing. And then when it gets to that 14 point, which I feel it's going to get to, then we have to invest in the Texans, because I just don't feel this Dolphins team, with, like you said, how bad their defense is going to be able to stop this Texans defense. Especially,
I think I honestly would need 15. That would probably be my buy-in point. I still think I would need 2 full more points.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's always a point, right? For every team, doesn't matter about what you like of them. There's always got to be a buy-in point for you.
Yeah. This is a holiday weekend. This is a holiday weekend. There's going to be more people gambling than normal. And there's going to be some advantages that we're going to be able to take advantage of. Joe Public, everyone's rushing to go bet the Dolphins. And I bet this number is going to get closer to 14. And then that's when, I'll look to bounce. Important to note that, the Texans are god awful against the run. Since being traded, Jeffrey Wilson has out-carried Mozart 26-17. Yeah. I think we need to monitor that. I think he's kind of in a good position to
good system, because that was a San Francisco back, Mike McDaniel. Yeah. He knows the system very well.
So I think that's kind of the back we need to kind of target in DFS, not Mozart. I think most people are going to target because they feel like he's like the starter. So I think we're going to have to tread the different way and look to go after Wilson.
So we move to our next game. It's Tampa and it's Cleveland. The Bucks are a 3.5 point favorite on the road at Cleveland Browns. Over under in this game 43. Tampa is 5-5 straight up, 3-6-1 against the spread. Cleveland 3-7 straight up, 4-6 against the spread. Browns scored a touchdown to start the game, and following that, on their next 4 possessions, punt, field goal, fumble, punt. They started the second half. They turned the ball over on downs. Then they missed a field goal. Then they punted. By the time they scored 2 late touchdowns, it was just to make the game seem closer than it really was. And their defense actually played pretty well, keeping them in the game early. But every time they made a play, the offense couldn't do anything with it. And I mean, Stefanski, I'm just becoming more and more disappointed with him. You kind of hit on this way early that is he really a good coach? I don't think so now, because he doesn't put his players in the best spot to succeed. Like Kareem Hunt is ranked, he's running back 40 this year in PPR on a per game basis. He has 3 double-digit games. They don't get him the ball at all. And
it's kind of like he went to severe. Like I've been saying forever, they didn't give Chubb the ball enough. It's kind of went
too far the other way.
You know what I mean?
It did. You're right.
Yeah,
you're right. And it's not even that I wanted Hunt to get a bunch of carries. It's like get him some targets. That's where you want Hunt in for some targets. But I mean, I would lean Browns if I was going to play this game. I have others on my card that I like more than this. I would not be laying number because I think Tampa's starting to like get a little too overvalued right now too. And they really have not done much, honestly. The one thing I do like coming out of this game, Peoples-Jones. He's now had 60 or more receiving yards in his last 5 games, dating back to week 4. He is 11th in receiving yards per game among receivers in that time period. That have played at least 6 games. So he should match up pretty well with Tampa. Tampa ranks 23rd against wide receiver 2s. So a good matchup for him. We saw Tampa coming off their bye. They won the time of possession. They ran the ball a lot better. Coming into that game, they were dead last in the league with rushing yards. And as a team, they ran for 161 and White ran a lot better. But that game against Seattle, too, was a little fluky. Like, Seattle was driving. It was 14-3, and they were about to make it 14-10. They fumbled, and Tampa went down and scored, and then all of a sudden it was 21-3. Like, it wasn't quite as dominant as the score might have suggested. I think Tampa's a little overvalued right now, too. Is this a spot that you can play them in, or do you have any opinion in this game, Eric?
If this gets over the 3, maybe a 3.5, I'll look. Weather looks pretty good. It's supposed to be 50.
So, we're seeing right now on Betfred 3.5 plus 3.5.
Okay.
For
so
Cleveland.
if I see a 3.5, then I'll look. This is the number I look to buy in on. I get it. Brady extended rest. He's 68% ATS, but when you get these small spreads, 3.5, he's only 14-14 at ATS. So on extended rest. So you know what I mean? He's really not covering these smaller numbers on extended rest. They are starting to get healthy. But at the end of the day, the thing with the Browns is it all comes down to Garrett. If Garrett's able to get home, it just elevates this defense. Against the Dolphins, he wasn't able to get home. Against the Bills, he wasn't able to get home. If he's not able to get to the quarterback, the way this defense is built in the back four and the injuries they've had, they just can't cover anything. So that's basically what it comes down to me. This Buccaneers defense isn't what it used to be back in the heyday with Sue and Vita Vera stopping the run. I think they're going to have success with Chubb and everything. I'd lean the Browns here. Like maybe if it keeps going up, I'll get invested. But again, man, like I have a lot of plays out there. I have a lot of plays circled. I just don't want to force anything. But if this gets up to 4, I definitely like to get involved.
Let's go Raiders versus the Seahawks. Raiders are a 3.5-point underdog here. Seattle minus 3.5 at home. Over under in this game 47.5. You have the Raiders 3-7 straight up, 4-6 against the spread. Seattle 6-4 straight up, 6-4 against the spread. Another big game for Adams last week. He had 141 of the Raiders' 307 passing yards. But keep in mind, I mean, they were down to a miserable Denver team late with 1 minute and 27 seconds left. They were down by 3. They got the ball back. They had to go 71 yards on 7 plays just to force overtime. And then they had to win it in overtime on a blown coverage play. No, they ran the ball better. They rushed for 100 yards. And as you were pointing out, Jacobs has really good success against Denver, but he leads the NFL in DYAR, in effective yards, and in success rate. This was their first win for the Raiders this year in a 1-score game. They were 0-6 in 1-score games before that. So, it's going to kind of even out a little bit. Carr actually has the best winning percentage by any quarterback in overtime with 10 plus games. He's 8-2. He has led a game-winning drive in 19 of the Raiders' 32 wins over the last 5 years. 19 game-winning drives since 2018 are actually the most in the NFL. This week, it could be a good week for Moreau and Hollins because Seattle is number 28 defending wide receiver number twos, and they're number 29 defending tight ends. I think I could look to play both of these guys in some DFS here. I don't really know if I have a play on this game one way or the other. You have Seattle coming off their bye. I mean, like, I think this number is kind of accurate. I actually think Seattle's the better team by like all metrics you look at. They're a much better team. I'm not going to lay the number in here. This just kind of feels accurate for me. So I'll stay away from this one, Eric.
Kind of want to take the over 47.5. I just don't know how the Ravens team is going to get defense. The Seattle team isn't world beater. Are we going to finally see Seattle come down to earth? Those are all kind of the stuff that's going through my head. Kenneth Walker should be able to run over this defense. Josh Jacobs should be able to run all over this defense. Carr, 58% ATS as a dog. Carroll, 57% ATS on extended rest. It's just hard. Like, we were on the Ravens last week. It was a great bounce back spot for them. They were able to get the cover at the +3 straight up win. But with how bad this defense is and how good the Seattle's offense has been.
And they're off the bye. They're a little extra rested. It feels accurate, the number to me does.
I would definitely just lean to the
over.
I would lean to the over, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at just a couple DFS plays, maybe, as I mentioned, maybe some of the Raiders wide receivers and maybe
And you hit the nail on the head, man. I mean, this year Josh Jacobs is having,
it's awesome.
It's just been absolutely insane. And like, it's driven his price up. Like, they're going to have to pay him more than they initially wanted to. And it's kind of funny. Like, if we rewind back to the Hall of Fame game, he suited up for that game. And you had all these talking heads on, fantasy touts and everything on Twitter and Instagram saying how Zahir White was going to be the number one running back. And, it's just Josh Jacobs bet on himself. He's going to get paid. Good for him, man.
Chargers versus Cardinals is our next game. We have the Chargers as a 4.5-point favorite on the road playing Arizona. Both of these teams were in the night games last week. You had the Chargers, who, again, a tough loss to Kansas City late on Sunday night. Arizona played a decent first half. They just got the doors blown off of them in the second half of that game. So they're a 4.5-point favorite at home. Arizona is 4-7 this year. They're 5-6 against the spread. Chargers are 5-5 straight up, 7-3 against the spread. Keenan Allen returned. He had 5 catches, 94 yards. He did have a bad fumble late in the game. Williams returned, but then he had to leave again because of injury. It was a strong game for Palmer, who had 8 catches, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also, he had 2 receptions on 2 targets when aligned tight. So that shows that he can get open and he can make tough catches. So far this year, I thought this was kind of interesting for the Chargers. So far this year, they've played the easiest schedule of pass. They've played the easiest schedule of pass defenses. Or so far this year, they played the toughest schedule of pass defenses. They played the easiest the rest of the way. They played the easiest schedule of run defenses. However, now they play a harder run defensive schedule along the way. So their team might look a little different because now they're going to be in games where they should have Allen back. They should be able to throw the ball more, but they're playing against teams that are going to be tougher to run on. So don't be surprised if you see Herbert have a pretty good second half of the year. I just think they may look differently coming up. Only the Steelers have faced a harder schedule of opposing offenses. So their defense should appreciate some of the relief it's getting. I mean, think about it. They've played the Chiefs twice, right?
Yeah.
So for them, right off the bat, that's not easy to have to do in the first, 8 to 9 games of your season. I don't really know what to take out of that game for the Cardinals, the Mexico City game. Maybe McBride. I mean, he had 4 targets. He caught all of them. Keep an eye on him. I think you pointed him out. In the second half, they ran 32 plays for 129 yards, 4.03 yards per play. They turned the ball over on downs twice. They punted twice, and the last possession was an interception.
Yeah,
it wasn't good.
A couple things. Number one, I think it really hurt with Rondell Moore going down insanely early like he did. That was a big blow to them.
And I
Number
heard a
two
story
is
about Rondell Moore. So, in one of the shows I was listening to was doing like a fantasy recap over the weekend, and somebody had asked them, they were playing in a game and they were down by, or they were up by 1 point going into the Monday night game, and the only player they had left was Rondell Moore, and they said, "Should I play Rondell Moore?" And I think it was like 0.5. They said, no, you always got to play someone because you never know the stat correction. Rondell Moore had 1 catch for negative yards and he got a negative score. So he lost people their league because he played. If you just would have not played him, you could have won your matchup. But you figure, I'm going to throw him in because if Rondell Moore gets a catch for 2 yards and he has 2 points and I get a stat correction and I lose a point, at least I get it back. But the guy got screwed and he ended up losing because of what happened with Rondell Moore. That was one of the worst beats I can remember hearing.
I mean, I always do that fantasy football slate. And I mean, I had Jimmy G in my captain spot. That was 38 points. Kittle, 22 points, more negative points. So, I mean, like it was brutal. I got, I was bitten by it, but it's, one of those things. It's really tough to do anything in this game when you really don't know the quarterback situation. With the Cardinals, is it going to be Kyle? Is it going to be Colt, McCoy? I don't know where Robbie Anderson is. He seems like he's just disappeared. He's a complete non-factor in that offense since being traded, and it kind of shows like what a bad move it is that they actually did give up assets to get him when they
give up anything for him.
Yeah. Yeah, just an awful move. Kingsbury, he's 38% ATS at home, which kind of sticked out, but he is over. I don't have the stat in front of me. I'm sorry. He's like over 69% ATS against coaches that have not won a Super Bowl. This is kind of a stay away from me. Chargers do need to get this game. Chargers are kind of with how good the AFC is. Chargers really can't afford to dump many games.
No, and you know what? The rumor is that that's where Sean Payton wants to go.
Oh, I could see it.
Right? If you're the Chargers and you don't make the playoffs this year and you've got Herbert, do you say, hey, Stan, sorry, we gave you a shot. Like, I don't even think he's a bad coach, but if you're not winning and you've got a guy like Payton out there who wants to come in and work with someone like Herbert, I think you got to go do that, right?
I mean, you obviously do. He's a proven winner. You have to go get it. I mean, he got a little stale toward the end of the season. It's going to be interesting because you really don't know in terms of like draft capital what they'll have to give up, because I do know he's still under contract with them. Like maybe that'd be a pick or two. I think that'd be worth it though.
I do too.
They are kind of building like New Orleans West out there with what they're doing. They have their old offensive line coach. They have Lombardi out there as offensive coordinator. I think one of their big issues is I was kind of looking at it. They just don't do enough on the first downs. And I'm at my sister's place right now, or where I am, the internet doesn't work. But Herbert is only covered 1 second half spread. So maybe that's an angle we can look to take advantage of, fading them in the second half because they're just not covering second half numbers with how bad that defense has been. But, this is a game to pass for me. I really don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I agree. As we continue along, and I really don't know what to do with this next game either, to be honest. This is a huge number, but we don't know. Like for the Rams, Stafford cannot play in this game. There's no way. That was another concussion. He was in concussion protocol. I just don't know why you'd even want to put him back out there. Cup's done for the year. Now, the positive for the Rams, who come into this game at 3-7, 2-7-1 against the spread. The Chiefs are 8-2, 3-6-1 against the spread. Is that the Rams actually ran the ball better last week. That's a positive. They did rush for a season high, 148 yards, 4.9 yards per carry. Akers had 14 carries for 61 yards. But, man, this is the first time under McVay they've lost 4 straight games. This is a massive, massive number. I just don't want to touch it. Like, I would never lay it with the Chiefs. No way. But I don't know how the Rams are going to score at all right now. I just don't. I really don't want anything to do with this. Mahomes is 13-7 in his career when he's been trailing at halftime. No other quarterback since the 1970 merger has a record over 500 when they're trailing at
Yeah.
halftime in a minimum of 10 games. They're 4-0 this year, and they have a 3-game lead in the AFC West. Pacheco last week, we called that
My
one
boy.
15 carries, 107 yards, 7.1 yards per carry. Kelsey was awesome. This year in the red zone, he has 15 catches. 10 of them are touchdowns, and 2 of them are first downs, which is just nuts. And their offensive sack rate, 4%. It's second in the NFL. Between the offensive line and Mahomes just being smart and avoiding sacks, they're just a good football team right now. They look like one of the best football teams, and probably the most consistent, confident you could be about a team. But like everybody's starting to talk about them, they're going to be a little bit overvalued. I'll play against them maybe in one of the weeks coming up. Even with my Rammies, I just can't do it here. I don't see how the Rams move the ball. They have not been able to. Can they run the ball maybe a little bit and try to make this a game? I'm staying away, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, we don't know what's going to happen with the Rams quarterback room. We don't know if it's going to be Wolford, or whatever his name is. Is it going to be the kid Perkins? Perkins does bring a lot more with his running capability. Interesting move. They released Darrell Henderson. Today's Tuesday. I got the alert that they released him today. That was kind of an interesting move. I honestly didn't see that one coming. Maybe that opens up the door for Kyren Williams. He did have 6 targets last week. I'll be looking to play him in DFS. He's going to be around 5-1 to score a touchdown. This Chiefs defense, for as good as their offense has been, this Chiefs defense isn't that good. So maybe you can get him to score a touchdown. That'd be the only way I'd look here. I hope the people listening, after week 1, I told everyone to play Mahomes at 7-1 to win MVP. He's now minus 150 to win it. Hope some of you guys tailed that. And I hope some of you guys tailed that. What was that future? Under 850 for Cam Akers rushing yards. That one's looking pretty good too.
Yeah, I think you're good there. As we move to Saints.
Hey, buddy, you know what? I never get too cocky, man.
No. But that's like you said. See, crazy things could happen, but it's a great call.
Never get too cocky, man.
Let's get to Saints 49ers. This is the team that I want to play. They're the new team that I'm going to pick on now, the 49ers. They're a good football team, but they're way too overvalued. Even the other night, like they were a double-digit points favor in that game. They caught a really big break early in the game when a ball bounced right off of the receiver's hands into their arms for a return touchdown. The 49ers defense is very good. I still have major concerns about who they are as a team. Okay, they've beat one team this year with a winning record, the 49ers. They have the 3rd lowest strength of victory in the NFC. So the defense has feasted on inferior offensive opponents. Last week, they played McCoy, backup quarterback. 2 weeks ago, they played the Chargers, who didn't have any of their receivers and were missing a bunch of their defense also. They played the Rams twice, and the Rams might be the worst offensive team in the league. They played Carolina and Denver. Think about that. Listen to the schedule for the 49ers this year. Week 1, they played the Bears and they lost. Remember, that was that monsoon, but that was when the Bears were awful, and that was before the Bears' offense actually looked good. Then in week 2, 49ers beat Seattle, but what's funny, that was before Seattle started looking really good. But we'll give the 49ers that win. Then the 49ers lose to Denver. They lost to the Broncos. Then they come back, they beat the Rams, they beat the Panthers, they lose to Atlanta, they lose to the Chiefs, they win against the Rams, Chargers, and Cardinals. So here are their 6 wins this year. They've come against the offenses that are ranked number 7, 25, 30, 25, 24, and 29. They've played one game against they have won one game against an offense that ranks top 10, and that was against Seattle in week 2. They are beating up on bad offenses, and that makes their defense look a lot better than it is. Do they have a great defense? Sure. They played the Chargers when the Chargers were banged up. They played the Cardinals with McCoy. The good offenses that they've played, here they are. Seattle, that was in week 2 when Seattle really hadn't figured things out yet. They played Atlanta, who's number 12 in offensive DVOA, 49ers lose to Atlanta. They play the number 1 offense, the Chiefs, they lose. Anytime they play these good offenses, they lose. That's my only concern though. Is this a team like the Saints? Did they have the offense that can beat them? No. But I'm going to look to play against this 49ers team throughout the year, Eric, because I just think they're overvalued right now. I just don't know what to do with the Saints. They come off a nice win. And what I was impressed with, at least last week, they put the ball in the hands of their playmakers. Olave had 102 yards. They got Landry involved. He had 3 receptions. Kamara had 16 touches for 89 yards. They got Hill the ball 10 touches for 60 yards. And your boy Johnson, you mentioned Johnson would have been a good play. 5th straight game with a touchdown. He's becoming a very reliable target.
I'll say this. If you guys aren't following him and his wife on TikTok, you're missing out. I mean, the stuff they do is absolutely hilarious. Like, she does this one where, like, I'm not even getting into it, but it's pretty funny. They basically mock everything everyone says about an NFL wife, if that makes sense. And they play it off great.
Nice.
In terms of this game, they got Miami on deck. That's kind of a big game. They just are coming back from Mexico, a little bit of a weird travel situation. Teams that won by 28 points or more that are favorites the next game, that's kind of where the 49ers won. They just won 38-10. Only 47% ATS. Shanahan favorite, 39%. Home favorite, 39%. Favorite of 7 or more, 38%. I want to fade the 49ers here, just on the Shanahan principle of him constantly not covering. I want to know if Cam Johnson's coming back, the defensive lineman for the Saints. I kind of got to see what he's going on. But yeah, I like the Saints here. Saints are going to be on my card. But what is it? What is it at now?
9.
7?
9.
9? Oh my God. Yeah, if this gets up to 10, this is a buy. San Francisco's a little overvalued.
That's what I mean. They're
but
good.
I will say this, like, a couple weeks ago, I came on your show and I was like, guys, like, and I don't know, I kind of pride myself at trying to be ahead of the curve. Like, absolutely. I said like a couple weeks before the Washington game, I was like, guys, like, Eagles can't stop the run. We need to look to see who's the team in the NFC that can come in a cold Philadelphia day and beat them running the ball. I said take the 49ers here. I think it was at like 8 or 9 to 1 to come out of the NFC, and just to put a small future on them to win it all. Now that they're the second favorite to win the NFC now. So, I mean, it's just kind of one of those buying points, but I agree with you. I think this is a selling point of the 49ers. Them covering this big number, especially after winning on Monday Night Football in Mexico, a little bit inflated primetime game, and just the Shanahan treads of, him not covering. But I got to see if Cam Johnson's there. If Cam Johnson's there, that disrupts this 49ers rushing attack a little bit more. So I'll look into that. And I'll say this. I was on the 49ers futures at the very beginning of the year. I was really touting them not to make the playoffs. I believe it was under 11 wins. But my main reason for that is because I had absolutely no faith in
Lance.
What's his face?
Yeah,
Lance. And I really feel like if Lance was there, this team would be completely and utterly different, and they'd be struggling a little bit.
They look a lot different, and the thing is, their offense still isn't that good. Like, they're really not for a team that has all the playmakers and weapons. They still struggle in spots offensively. That's what worries me. And it's almost like they got so many weapons now that they have to keep everybody happy. Okay, let's give McCaffrey a few. Let's give Debo a few. We don't forget about Kittle. But then Ayuk's there too,
I mean, like, Kittle last week, everyone was he got a little testy with not getting the ball and everything. And they gave him the ball. He had 2 touchdowns. So we kind of have to pay attention to that, about who's bickering and everything. And the squeaky wheel gets the ball? Is that the saying?
Yeah, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah, it gets the grease. But I mean, this team's got some holes. I did see something online. Someone said that the move to get McCaffrey was more about next year when they're going to try to lure out Tom Brady there. What do you think of that?
Oh, okay. Thinking ahead, maybe. I guess, yeah, maybe.
Because they said Brady needs a pass catching back.
Yeah, and Brady would, I'm sure, would love him just to dump off to all the time. I mean, it would be a great fit, and perhaps that's the plan for them. We have 2 more games to discuss on the Week 12 slate. Let's talk Sunday night and Monday Night Football. Packers, Eagles. Packers 4-7 straight up, 4-7 against the spread. Eagles 9-1 straight up, 5-5 against the spread. Packers came back to life because they're really not a good football team. They're just not. They had a great spot a few weeks ago against Dallas, but then last week, Thursday Night Football, they played against the Titans, and the Titans kind of beat them up. Passes of 15-plus yards through Thursday Night Football. Quarterbacks that have more yards per attempt than Rodgers: Carson Wentz, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Marcus Mariota. Unbelievable. Last week, they tried to sell out to stop the run against the Titans because the run defense for the Packers has been bad. And then the Titans threw the ball all over them. They passed for 320 yards against the Packers defense. It's actually pretty good against the pass. They're 4th in the NFL in passing yards allowed. But you know what? I dove into that more. That's deceiving, Eric. The only reason why the Packers have a good metric in passing yards allowed is because they've been down in all of their games and teams run on them. You don't have to pass the ball against them when you're playing them because you just run, then you get up and you just keep running. So, you know, that's why they have a lower metric in that particular statistic. If they just try to run the ball, they're good. They're 3-1 this year when they run for 120 yards or more. When they don't, they're 1-6. That's pretty simple. Rodgers is 13-2 in his past 15 primetime games. On the flip side, you have the Eagles. They had 2 turnovers in their last game. They've looked really flat over the last few weeks. They lost a time of possession battle. They could not get much going on the ground with just 4 yards per rush. And the defense, they were bad on that first drive, but it did look like the signings of Joseph and Sue should really help them stopping the run, Eric, because after that, they brought 2 guys in who probably haven't even practiced with their team, and the run defense was so bad on the first drive, they just said, screw it, we're going to put these guys in. And they did pretty well. The rest of the game, they only allowed 99 yards rushing to the Colts and 3.8 yards, 35 yards on 15 carries in the final 10 drives from Taylor. And they came back from 10 points down in the fourth quarter. They're just kind of in that sleepy spot, I think, in the middle of the year where you win a bunch of games and now they're trying to figure things out without Goddard, who was a big part of their offense. Smith was nice to see. He actually got an uptick. He had 9 targets. I think he may be someone you want to throw into a captain spot or 2. Talk to us about Eagles, Packers. Eagles are a 7-point favorite here, over under 46.5.
I'll be the first to admit it when I'm wrong, and I was wrong on Hurts. I mean, the one thing when I rewatched the Colts game yesterday was he has it, man. He looks confident, and you can kind of tell he's in control of the situation.
He's just a football player, right? Like he understands what to do.
He's a winner. He has it, dude. He legitimately has it.
Totally agree.
I was completely wrong on him. I completely whiffed on him. You know, it's a little bit of a hiccup in the season. All these teams have it. They're finding ways to win, which I think is good. They need to start to get more from Miles Sanders, I feel, a little bit. I feel like they're not getting enough from him in the running game. Obviously, losing the tight end Dallas Goedert, that's a big thing because he's such a big focal point of the offense.
And I think this will be a focused Miles Sanders game, right? Like a get Miles Sanders right game because Green Bay is not very good against the run. I could see them trying to lean on him here after a couple quiet weeks.
Exactly. I would use him in terms of DFS, but I'll be honest, like there's nothing. I'll probably look at his over prop will probably be juiced up. Maybe a Kenneth Gainwell over total yards prop. I'd look into that, but anything else, it's really, really hard to get invested.
Let's finish up, Eric, with Monday Night Football. We've got the Steelers. We've got the Colts, and the Colts are a 2.5-point favorite in this game. They are home, over under 39. Pittsburgh is 3-7 straight up, 4-5-1 against the spread. Colts 4-6-1 straight up, 5-6 against the spread. Colts played really well last week. They allowed just over 300 total yards to the Eagles. They forced turnovers. They controlled the line of scrimmage. They picked up 3 sacks. They held Eagles running backs to just 55 yards on 17 carries. They had a nice opening drive to score a touchdown, but following that, they only had 1 drive that went for over 32 yards. Matt Ryan took a bad sack in the red zone. There was a missed face mask call that cost them some points. The offensive line wasn't very good. They gave up 4 sacks, 8 penalties for 90 yards. That really hurt in a close game. They were so far this year, they are 2 of 10 on 4th down. That is dead last in the league at 20%. One thing I'm going to look for them to do this week is target Pittman. Pittman is 7th among wide receivers this year with 92 targets. What number would you say he is in red zone targets? So he's 7th overall in targets. Where would you guess he was in red zone targets?
I don't know off the top of my head.
63rd. 63rd. And he only has 1 touchdown. The Steelers have allowed a league-leading 22 passing touchdowns this year. I think it could be a good spot for him to get into the end zone. I think they'll try to focus on that for him. I don't really know what to take out of the Steelers right now. I mean, they're just like a very typical Steelers Tomlin team. They're overachieving. They don't have the offensive weapons, and they don't really have the offense anymore. Pickens looks good. Pickett focuses in on him. Like, he gets a lot of the targets there. And Watt picks this team up. They're much more competitive with Watt around. Watt made a fantastic play last week. One of the best interceptions you'll see. And Burrow was like, what the hell did he just do? He like snagged it out of the air.
It was absolutely insane.
It was crazy.
It was insane. Look, this is just a Tomlin spot. You know, he's 58% ATS as a road dog, 57% ATS after a loss. You know, and we've mentioned it. I've mentioned it before. You know, teams after playing the Eagles, 37% ATS. Physical game, teams aren't covering. I like the Steelers here. I locked it in at 3. You know, you mentioned the Jeff Saturday. You know, we got Jeff Saturday against Mike Tomlin. Are you kidding me right now? Like, yeah. That's
and let's give credit where credit is due. So far, Jeff Saturday has done pretty well. But I completely agree with you. I think this is different.
It kind of goes back to something I mentioned on here before with Arthur Smith. Most of the coaching is kind of, I don't want to use the term like good old boys club, but it kind of is. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And the fact that Saturday's kind of been able to come in here and kind of just been like, you know what? Hey, this is what we're going to do. Blah,
it shows you that it's not rocket science, right?
Yeah.
If you just play simple and smart, you can be competitive. I'm not saying you and I can go out there and coach a team that's going to, you know, win the Super Bowl, but I bet you with just a couple good heads on their shoulders, there could be more competent people that come off the streets than some of the staffs there. Honestly.
Yeah, it just blows my mind. You know, I absolutely love him, and it's just primetime dog Tomlin. This is what he does, man. 67% ATS, Monday night football as a dog. You know, he just covers as a dog. He gets his team to overachieve and everything. Steelers are Colts are kind of playing over their head in my eyes. You know, it's still Matt Ryan. Is Matt Ryan going to have the escapability of Joe Burrow with Watt getting in his face, with Hayward getting in his face? Colts really don't have even though Chase wasn't there, I think Higgins and Pittman are on the same level. I don't think Pierce is near Boyd. I don't think Mo Alley-Cox is near Hayden Hurst. I think the Bengals had a little bit more skilled playmakers that were able to take advantage of the Steelers' holes in the Steelers' defense. Najee Harris is looking a lot better. Pickens is developing into an alpha right before our eyes. So I like the Steelers here. And something I'm looking to do is I'm looking to target guys to score an anytime touchdown who have the most receiving yards or the most scrimmage yards. Last week, you know, I was able to hit Dante Peoples-Jones at a juicy plus 350. He had the most yards without scoring a touchdown. Now it's Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson has the most yards in the league without scoring a touchdown. I'll kind of look at his touchdown props. If it's anything over 3-1, I'll look to lock that in.
We got Lions plus 9.5, Giants plus 9.5, Vikings minus 2.5, Steelers plus 2.5, and Saints plus 9 for our 5.
Sounds good, my man.
Eric, buddy, I'm very thankful for a friend like you. It's Thanksgiving week. It's been a couple years now where you have been a huge part of this show. I learn a lot from you. I know that no matter what we're talking about, you always put in the work. College basketball, college football, NFL, NBA, anything at all that you're going to discuss. I know you're going to put the time and the effort in. You're investing your own money. You put your money where your mouth is, and you become a really good friend, and you are a damn good handicapper. And man, you do a great job working hard, promoting your stuff. I see your following on social media keeps getting bigger and bigger, and I'm very lucky to have you as a friend. So Thanksgiving week, I'm thankful for you helping us out on That's What G Said, my man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's been like 2 years now, 2 or 3 years. Consider you a friend. I vent to you a lot about stupid shit that's pissing me off. I appreciate
Yeah, I
that.
do the same. We have
And just kind of like, yeah, you're always a good, bouncy board for ideas I have. So I appreciate you. Thank you for letting me, be part of everything. You opened a lot of doors for me, and I appreciate that.
Make sure to give Eric a follow at Etoff21 on Twitter. Eric from Etoff21 Sports. You can find him all over social media. If you follow him on Twitter, you can get links to everything on YouTube, Instagram, all of his other stuff there. Podcast that comes out every Tuesday. Another one that'll come out on the weekend. Daily video plays all over the place. All video streams with XFL Gym a lot of the times. We've been doing our Twitter Spaces. We're gonna take that one off this week for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And we'll come back next week for that one. Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I
we'll
figured.
circle back next week. Yep.
So next week we'll be back
yeah.
on Thursday at 2:00 p.m. Eastern time. Just a little 10-15 minute Twitter Space to preview the Thursday night football game. Buddy, you have a great weekend with your family. You and I will still be talking. We've got college football to discuss, and then we'll be on the BTV Bet Show on Sunday morning at 11:00 a.m. Eastern time. But again, one more time, a big thanks to you, and have a nice holiday with your family.
Thanks, you too, man.
That's Eric from Etoff21 Sports. Week 12 NFL. Folks, stay tuned. We've got a lot more to come on That's What G Said. If you're watching on social media, thanks so much for hanging out. We'll have another one of these next week where we go over